Hey everyone, thank you again for listening. I'm your host Nelson Pizarro, and this is Life in a Wine Bottle. This is actually part two of Vineyard Management. We had our special guest David Drucker. He gave us some great advice. He gave us a little background about himself from part one. So if you haven't listened to it, make sure you go back. In part two, we're going to talk about some advice that he's going to help to prevent issues in the vineyard. He shares some great stories. Also, he's going to give us exactly how he can help your vineyard, and he'll have his contact information at the end of this episode. Let's give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Castelli Family Vineyards, where you can taste the love of the wine. Follow and like them on Instagram at CastelliFV. Bespoke Maestro, they make elegant dresses and suits benefiting any occasion. Follow them on Instagram at Bespoke Maestro. Nutrient AG Solutions, ensuring grower profitability by offering unparalleled access to innovation solutions recommended by your local experts. San Diego Wine Tasting app, easy to use, free to download, fun to find a new winery in San Diego. Download the app today. Make sure you search for San Diego Wine Tasting app on the Apple Store and Play Store. What other advice will you give a couple of people to help prevent any issues in the vineyard? Besides staying on the regular, not regular, but staying on your scheduled spraying schedule. Is there any other advice besides that for newcomers and old comers that you can give to them?
Well, I'd say stay engaged in your associations because sometimes trends can be brought up. I know um, there's a lot of good information, not only shared about Vineyard, but if you are getting ready to even start a winery or want to produce, there's just some good opportunities to interact with other local growers. So that would be good, and just be observant. It's so important to just know what's going on out there. And if you have an opportunity to take a viticulture class, I know Miracosta has some, um, and then there's some other courses. I don't know what they're doing now, probably online, like UC Davis, I think has quite a robust course as
And most
well.
of them, I'm sure, are online right now.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
it's
So I'd
easy
say
to
try.
do.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's going to be really
Yeah,
important
it's
to
great
get
advice. Yeah, it's always good to learn and see what's the up and coming, and the other part is checking the vineyard. For us personally, you just get busy. Like right now we have bottling coming in, so I'm racking all the wine. I'm blending wine into stainless steel, and in 2 weeks we're gonna bottle. So I'm physically not gonna be in the vineyard all the time because I'm focusing on that, getting the bottles, getting the labels, getting the corks, blending the wine, then transferring the 2019 wine into 2018 barrels. There's a huge, the vineyard isn't going to stop, but also the wine process isn't going to stop either. And for us, we don't hire people. We just do it ourselves. So it gets a little overwhelming, but you're absolutely right. We do tend to walk away from the vineyard just saying how pretty it is from the outside and not physically going in the vineyard. And we just see, I mean, we'll look at the leaves and the leaves are nice and dark, a really good color, but it's the grapes that we need to worry about. you know, those are really what we have to physically see. And we just put up the nets right now. So we start getting into another challenge that you can't see if there's any mold growing. You can't see any of that side. So we physically have to walk through it and take our time moving the nets a little bit to kind of check through them. So there's it's always interesting during this time of year because everything always comes at once. For us, from picking to nets to wine to bottling. So it's always a fun process around here. Um, what kind of story do you have? A story that you can share from your previous customers that you gave them advice, they took it, and the outcome was amazing after they took your advice? Is there anything like that that you have experience with?
Let's see. Actually, there are a few, because when we put together, sometimes when I put together like a fertility program, it's of course based on testing. So it's a prescriptive program. We don't just have a set program. And I've been real happy to see, in fact, it's a San Diego grower and winery that has adopted some of those fertility techniques, and their vines look fantastic. They're, again, like kind of like you were saying, it just visually, the vineyard is stunning.
What's the name of the vineyard?
And the fruit.
Let's put the name of the vineyard. Come on.
Okay, let's go.
Who is it?
Okay, it's a shout out for Hungry Hawk.
Oh, great. Yeah, they're in Escondido.
Yeah. Yes.
They're right there on the border.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, Mike is making some fantastic wines. The family are, they're just terrific people, and they really put the effort into growing good grapes and making really good wine. And I've just been happy to see by him adopting or utilizing the products that we're recommending. I see the result in the vine, and I can taste it. I mean, I can't tell you. Yeah, it really made a difference. So I've been real happy with that, and that's the local kind of connection. Kind of getting back to soil health, because I do have to share with you some interesting stories. I remember going to a vineyard in Temecula, and they're just old, tired vines, just haven't been given a lot of love. And I put together kind of a soil health program where we're not only feeding the vines, but we're feeding the biology in the soil. It's so important to understand that there's biology that we have to feed. That soil has to be alive. If the soil is alive, everything else, all the other things take place in the presence of beneficial bacteria, beneficial fungi, protozoa, other living organisms. And you do this by adding certain fertility products. And that, I think, really helped this vineyard. In fact, they were slated to pull out a block. Their owner thought that this block was it was not worth keeping. And of course, the scale is a little different. So we're talking about maybe a 200-acre vineyard. So guy's got maybe 20 acres that he's just saying, I'm done with it. And I said, look, wait, let's try this fertility program.
Nice.
I hate to see you do that. And it was one of those things, even their consultant from overseas that comes over was absolutely amazed. He said, what did you guys do? And I said, no secrets. I'm going to share exactly what we did. Wow. And it was amazing. And they actually had fruit for that following season. And as it turned out, they ended up keeping the block. So those are success stories that we know work. We know the products perform, and that's why I like to make the most out of these tools that I have available to me.
Yeah, and the experience that you have, I mean, how many people can say that they physically got a bad soil or vineyard, and now you got fruit the next year, that they're able to make money off that, so it was you gotta weigh those options, right? Instead of just, it'll cost a lot of money to rip up the vineyard anyways, 20 acres. What are you gonna do with the poles, the wire? So it's I'm glad you're able to do that. And those excellent stories. For me, you're always, anytime I texted you or I called you for questions, we have seen our vineyard change in a positive way, as in better, not so much fruit wise, because we actually drop a lot of fruit in our vineyard, but just the clusters. They're a lot full, luscious, easier to pick. Um, so it's really nice to have that, because when you go to a vineyard that they thought they're doing everything right and they didn't give the right nutrients to it, it's actually sometimes a lot harder to pick, because you actually got to pick through the actual cluster and cut the cluster and then cut, a bad part of it. But for us, we've been getting, a big percentage of it. We're able to just pick the cluster and drop it in our bucket, instead of pick the cluster and look through it and say, oh, it's missing this or it's missing that. So, so for your end, thank you very much for all that help. We really appreciate in that area. So you say you serviced or consult or service San Diego. You sometimes go up to Riverside, Temecula. Is there anywhere you won't go, as in past LA or?
Right. Yeah. It's just, it's really a function of geography. I mean, because our company is pretty vast, I don't need to go really beyond Southern California. We have a location in Oxnard, and that would be so far to have to travel, right?
Yeah.
So I just stay relatively close to the growers. And
Are you the only one in your position right now?
no, actually, I've got many different colleagues. Just in San Diego alone, I think I have like 4 other colleagues that I work with on a regular basis. Now, some of the folks are specialists in nursery and greenhouse, other ag specialists that do a lot of work in citrus avocados. And I work in citrus avocados. I work with nurseries. So a lot of us are really diverse in our backgrounds and
But you're mainly
experience.
vineyard. You'll say you're
I'm mostly vineyard, and then also work with citrus and avocado, especially up in the Temecula, Fallbrook area.
okay.
I'll do that as well. So, but so our PCAs are kind of diverse, and we have a very interesting crop mix here in San Diego County as opposed to other parts of the state. As you can imagine, if we were in the middle of the San Joaquin Valley, it would be, those typical crops, and you wouldn't have a lot of greenhouse and nursery. You would just have a lot of almonds and tree crops and vegetable crops.
Yeah, interesting. What about like what's your typical day? Are you have appointments set up, or is it kind of somebody just calls you randomly and then you just help them? How does your day work with the company? How does that work for you?
Well, as you can imagine, this COVID-19 kind of changed the dynamic quite a bit. Right off the bat, we could not travel and go anywhere. I mean, I think we are all locked down. We get, and so our company adheres to federal and state guidelines depending on what's going on with our current situation. So if you COVID, a typical day does, I like to try to focus on a particular area so I could minimize my travel time. So if I'm going to be around the Ramona area, I'll utilize a day and perhaps reach out to certain growers, let them know I'll be in the area, and I could actually come by and take a look at the vineyard and make some observations. Sometimes it's, depending on how flexible I am, it just takes a call or a email or text asking what my schedule is, and then we can schedule some on-site visits. But that's I try to set up my areas of travel, depending on what's going on and what time of year. For instance, if I'm working with my big strawberry grower in Orange County, that right now they're getting the fields ready for planting. So, but in the early winter, that's when the crop is early to mid winters when the Orange County strawberry deal is at its height, and it basically finishes up around Easter. Well, by Easter, we're going pretty strong in the vineyard. So I just kind of just travel around with the crops, and you know, depending on where I'm needed. So I'll just go wherever I need to go.
Oh, perfect. All right. What about what's your one advice to everybody listening that has a vineyard? What will you say is the best advice you can give? It has to be one,
Have
though.
you thought about? Oh, okay. What advice? I was going to
Just
say.
one. That's it. That you will say that this is the most important advice that you can give to anybody. It can be just, hey, contact me, or what will you think is one good advice?
I don't know. That's I don't know if there's any one good advice, but I think it's just perhaps just you know, just be thorough. Be thorough in your planning. Be thorough in how you move forward with your growing, and I think it just kind of just plan.
No, that's actually perfect. You know? That's a really good advice, because a lot of people get in this industry or in the farming world for a vineyard, falling in love with the bottle and not falling in love with the farming. And
right.
when you can't take one from another, because it's impossible to do. So, and the planning, I think, is what really makes you think about every single step. So if you think it's easy just to grow, and you like growing the vineyard, well, it's going to take you 4 years just to get good fruit. So do you have 4 years to spend of not really doing anything, just taking care of the vineyard? And then after that, you get your 4 years. Then you got to plan on producing, picking them, making wine, and then starting the whole process all over again. So that's excellent advice with the planning. So good. I know I got you off guard on that one, but that was good. That was an excellent tip.
Well, actually, Nelson, before we go on, I think that kind of segues to something that has come up several times this season. And some people were a little bit surprised, and they didn't want the answer that they got. But part of the planning and being aware is understand that there are forces out there, diseases that want to kill your vines. And if we're not willing to be aggressive to prevent that, we will have things like Eutypa, dieback, and which are wood diseases. So remember, after you prune, this is really critical. We have to protect those pruning wounds, because the rain after a rain event within 3 to 4 weeks of pruning could potentially spread those spores into the fresh cut, which will eventually move down into the plant and will kill the vine.
Yep.
So if you go on that UC IPM website, look up Eutypa, look up some of those wood rot diseases, and understand that your job's not done just because you pruned and you tied it onto the wire.
Yeah.
Be prepared to use some of the commercially available products that are available for protecting those pruning wounds. So it's not just when the plant's actively growing, because you know, it takes 2 or 3 years for that to manifest. And then you wonder why you have little shoots that are maybe 3-4 inches long and the fruit kind of aborts. It's just terrible. And it just keeps going downhill, because that basically will kill the vine. Another old name for it was dead arm, and it just works its way down the cordon, and you'll have nothing. You just have to cut it out.
I think we have a couple like that. Yep. And that, at the end of the day, that's from your previous advice, is the planning, because we think that we're done after there's no grapes, but they're still alive. The vines are still alive. So we still take care of them as if we're getting something back, even if we don't physically get the grape, a cluster of grape in December. It goes all the way until we go back again in August, or at least for us, we pick grapes out here in August. So yeah, that's perfect. I like that advice because I know it's happened to us. And we're just like, hey, what the heck is going on? The vine was great last year, and then it started kind of going downhill. And then by the third year, nothing. You can just snap it with your hand, so and you don't want to be in that situation. The good news is that it wasn't the whole vineyard. It was maybe 2 or 3 vines here and there that we're able to replant. But it could just spread out through the whole vineyard, like you're saying, if you don't take care of that. So that's great advice. All right, so that was the end of the podcast. I got one last little thing that I didn't tell you, and I have a game that I do. It's called the Spit Wine Game. You got 10 seconds to answer 5 questions. No, let's do 20 seconds to answer 5 questions. Are you ready for this?
Okay, no, wait, do I have to spit?
No, you don't have to spit anything. I just called it that because it was a fun game right there, a fun name.
Okay.
And it's going to be about wine. So it's nothing,
Okay.
it's nothing about plants because I know you can answer all those really easy. So here's the first one. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
White or red wine?
Red.
Favorite bottle? And it cannot be Castelli Family Vineyards.
Okay, favorite bottle. I don't know. I think it is Caymus Special Select.
They just had it last night. My father-in-law had it last night.
Have you had the Special Select? That is like
It's the Cabernet Sauvignon, right?
But it's called Special Select.
Yeah, and it says it.
So it's even.
But isn't it a Cabernet Sauvignon?
Yeah.
Yeah. They had it last night. Yeah, he loves Caymus.
Yeah.
And Mike loves Caymus, and that's actually a really good wine. All right. What about favorite winery?
Favorite winery. I like just because my roots go back to Sonoma County. I was very fond of Jordan.
Okay, nice. And there's no wrong or right answer.
Right.
It's your preference, all right? Any wine region you can go to, where would it be?
I think I want to go to Mendoza.
Mendoza, really? Well, what makes you want to go there?
Yeah, it's because I've never been, and I just want to see what that area is like, and I want to explore South America a little bit more. I'm sure
it's beautiful.
Yeah, I did it. I actually traveled in South America when I was in college with a roommate, but unfortunately, I wasn't really involved in agriculture at the time. It was early in my college career. So I didn't think about making Mendoza part of our trip through South America.
Well, now hopefully next year you can start traveling and not all this craziness going on. And the last question, what was the last bottle you opened?
Oh, last bottle was a 2017 Tempranillo from it was Renzoni from Temecula.
How was it?
It actually was very nice. Very nice.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, that Tempranillo is always a funny grape. We just planted 100 vines here, so that's a funny varietal to grow for us. But people, it's either you love it or you don't. There's no in between. Like, it's okay. It's either they love the wine. For me, whenever I talk to customers, like, I don't like this one, or I love this one, and that's all they want to drink the whole time. So, well, that was the end of the game there. David, I really appreciate all that you do for us. Whenever I contact you, just your knowledge and your background, I hope the viewers, listeners can reach out to you. Can you give out any information that you'll like an email address if you want to, that if they have any questions, they can kind of reach out to you directly, or whatever kind of information you think is the best to give out for them to reach out to you?
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you and hopefully reach out to the rest of you folks out there. So you could easily reach out to me via email. So it's David.Drucker, Drucker, at Nutrien, Nutrien.com. That's probably the easiest, the easiest way is just shoot me an email and then we can start the conversation. And if I can help any of you folks, I would love to do so. And want to be a resource. I started doing this in 1982. So
So you have a little bit of knowledge.
just a little bit of knowledge. Yeah, you probably weren't even born yet.
No, I wasn't actually. 85.
Yeah, you see, that's how I look. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So I really appreciate it, David. Much. Do you have any other? You want anything else you want to add into the podcast?
Well, it's a little early to be toasting, but it's really all about at this time in our lives and history. It's be safe and be well, as I like to tell people. And when we toast, we want to say cheers or or to life. I mean, let's celebrate life, folks. Let's enjoy it. Let's love those that are close to you and love them even more now that we have a lot to be proud of. And let's just live life and enjoy it.
Perfect. Thank you, David. I'll talk to you. I'm sure I'll send you a text or a call down the road within a couple of weeks or something, because I probably found some bug on the vine or something. So I really appreciate it. And
okay.
Thank you very much. Have a good rest of the day.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
That was the end of our episode, Vineyard Management. Appreciate everybody listening or watching on YouTube. I want to thank all sponsors: Castelli Family Vineyard, Nutrien AG Solutions, Bespoke Maestro, and San Diego Winetasting. Lastly, a special thank you to David Drucker. I appreciate your time, your knowledge, your information, just being part of the podcast. I had a great time. I learned a lot. And also, thank you very much for helping us in our vineyard. From my personal experience, our grapes are looking great this year and excited to do harvest. I'm your host, Nelson Pizarro. Thank you for listening to Life in a Wine Bottle. Subscribe to our YouTube podcast channels on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and like us and follow us on Instagram at Life in a Wine Bottle. See you guys next time. Thank you very much.